Wednesday afternoon, 1:15. Talking about balls is back, but we do have ourselves a little bit of a somber note. My partner Wayne is not here, so you know what that means. You're going to get better analysis. No, just kidding. But he's not going to be here today. That's fine. We move. It is January, or not January. I'm an idiot. It is June the 18th, and I am glad to be with you here today. The Boston Celtics, NBA champions, once again, the 18th time. The Celtics and the city of Boston add yet another title, adding to the list. I mean, the Red Sox have, what, 11 of those things? Maybe less than that. The Red Sox have like 7. The Bruins, the Celtics have 7, 18 now, and the Patriots with 6. I mean, it's just the town that just wins. They just win games, and it's unfortunate for everybody else involved. But, Patriots aren't doing too good. They rebound pretty nicely with the Boston Celtics. So, Celtics champs, they beat the Dallas Mavs in 5 games. Look, Dallas didn't look competitive too much in this series, right? Game 4, they came out and they took it because that's usually what happens in these series, right? You go down 3-0, you come back in a game 4, and you take the W. And you usually get beat in game 5. And that's exactly what we saw here today, or yesterday. Game 5, Boston came out at home, and they took care of business. First off, listen, I'm going to give all the props in the world to Brad Stevens and Danny Ainge for building this operation. Players win championships, okay? But the front office gets players to win championships, if you know what I'm saying, right? The players do the winning. The front office gets the players to do the winning. So I could argue they're just as important. Danny Ainge got the core. Jason Tatum, home run pick in the draft and the 3rd overall pick in 2017. Jaylen Brown, home run pick 3rd overall in 2016. Okay? They built the core. Every good house starts with a good foundation. Danny Ainge built the foundation and created a winning culture in Boston again. If you remember, they won in 2008. They had a couple of runs in the playoffs, 2014, 15, 16, and 17. Awful. The Celtics were a laughingstock of the NBA. They come back, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, the young duo gets going, and they make the conference finals in 2018, and then they're just here and there, making the playoffs, making deep runs left and right, getting to the finals in Golden State, but they didn't look ready. They were not the more experienced team. They didn't come in favorites. They looked like they were struggling a lot in that series, and they did. Fast forward to 2023, they basically bring back the same core. What do? They go against Miami, go down 3-0 in the series, come back to make it 3-3, and then lose in 7, and Miami would go on and lose the finals. So something had to change. It was clear, and we said it in April. When we're doing our NBA playoff predictions, we said this, okay? We said you can't be a young team. You cannot be a young team forever. At some point, you're going to get older. That's how it goes for every human ever, okay? Except for me when I find the fountain of youth, but that's neither here nor there. But that goes for everybody ever. So if you just say, oh, we're young, we have next year, and next year turns into 2 years and 3 years and 4 years and 5 years, you're not going to do anything. And quickly, you go from being 20 years old to 27, and instead of having a 10-year window, you got a 5-year window of being good, right? So Boston understood they can't just sit back. They can't sit back and kind of go with the same core and say, okay, we have a good enough shot. Maybe that'll get us a championship sometime. They said, let's be aggressive. Let's go get Kristaps Porzingis. Let's give up for him. Let's go get Derek White. Let's give up for him, right? Let's take some of our pieces and take them out. They had Grant Williams. That experiment failed, right? They had experiments. Dennis Schroeder was on the squad. They had guys, Kemba Walker, right? They hadn't found their guy at the point guard position. Let's go acquire Drew Holiday, right? Get Drew Holiday on the squad. So right there, Brad Stevens makes 3 huge additions to the team. All guys that were just huge impactors in this series. All of these players from Jaylen Brown, or not Jaylen Brown, from Drew Holiday to Derek White to Porzingis. Porzingis, if you remember, in game one was unconscious shooting the basketball. He's a great rim threat. You got to be at 7'3". Derek White and Drew Holiday, that backcourt is incredible. I mean, you talk about one of the best defensive backcourts in a long time in the NBA, and what does that allow you to do? You can lock up on defense, and when we came into this series, we're saying Luka and Kyrie, those are the guys you have to stop. Luka, 29 points per game in this finals, but the thing is, the big number, 5.5 assists, significantly lower than what he'd average in these playoffs, averaging around 8.5. 5.5 assists for Luka. Okay? Significantly lower than what we have saw historically in his career when he's a 9 to 10 assists per game type of guy. 5.5. 5.5 assists for Luka. They shut down the outsiders in Dallas. Okay? And listen, I am mad. I'm pissed about how Dallas played in this series. Okay? I really am, because I look at the Dallas Mavs. Okay? They were the only team in the NBA this past season, in the regular season, that had two players, Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, top 12 in alley-oops attempted and alley-oops made. So this team loves their lobs, right? Gafford and Lively get about a lob a game, right? They did not get that in these finals. They shut that down. Lively had a couple lobs, so did Gafford, but it wasn't like, 5 lobs, 5 for 5. There's a reason Daniel Gafford in the NBA regular season this year had 2 stretches where he went 32 of 32 and 30 of 30, because it was easy shots. I can give you a newsflash, he ain't hitting 30 consecutive jump shots. There's no way. He had easy dunks and layups, and they did not get him involved in this series at all. Credit to Boston, and too many times we discredit the champ and say what these guys did wrong. Look, Boston put together a great game plan that was able to get them a championship. They got banner 18 for crying out loud. But the miss by Dallas, the misses on terms of not able to double. They're doubling too much. They're kicking it out in the corner for 3. Made a TikTok on that today. Too many times, too often, Dallas was doubling Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, which is fine, okay? They always have the saying, hey, make somebody else beat you. On Boston, you got Tatum and Brown, you want to shut those guys down. I understand that. Derek White, elite three-point shooter. Porzingis, elite three-point shooter. Drew Holiday can shoot fine. Make somebody else beat you works if the team is not as stacked and 8 three-point shooters deep like Boston. They don't have one guy in the rotation that can't shoot the lights out from downtown. So when you say make other guys beat you, that had worked against other teams in the playoffs that can't shoot as well. Oklahoma City, not a great shooting team. The Timberwolves, all right, but if you double and we put a guy in the paint, Gobert's useless. You can't do that against Boston because they can stretch everybody out in the perimeter. They could win a game with having 0 attempts in the paint because that's how good of a three-point shooting team they are. And I think the doubles from Dallas are stupid. I felt they allowed too many easy looks. Dallas allowed way too many easy looks. Shots that you would allow in a regular season game and even scratch your head then. Let alone an NBA Finals game, you're allowing open layups. Open layups in the NBA Finals. You can't get a more freer 2 points. And it's, I guess, fine if you allow open layups if you can respond back and get open layups yourself. No shot they got that because Boston was not taking possessions off, and it seemed like Dallas was taking possessions off. In this series, time and time again, they were taking possessions off. Right? Something you cannot do in the NBA Finals. Why would you play 82 games in the regular season, 15-plus games in the postseason, to get to the NBA Finals and take plays off? It makes no sense. And Dallas did it time and time again in this series. Porzingis would be left open for 3. And he hit a lot of freaking shots. Porzingis open under the basket. Drew Holiday I couldn't even count how many open layups in the NBA Finals. You are allowing open layups. That is something that just cannot happen. And they allowed it to happen. And listen, you could maybe get away with it. Maybe get away with it. If you were not playing a 64-win team that was the best team all year, that had not gone to a game 6 or 7, and played this entire playoffs without going into game 6 or 7. They lost twice in these finals, or in these playoffs. 3 times, actually, in these playoffs. They lost once to Miami, they lost once to Cleveland, and they lost once to Dallas. That is it. They don't lose. They lost 21 games all year. Their overall record this year, 80-21. And Dallas played as sloppy as you could play in an NBA Finals series, in an NBA Finals game. When it comes down to Game 5, Luka Doncic, by the way, looked gassed. Down the stretch, he looked gassed. And I made a TikTok about it earlier today, or maybe last night, saying, where was the Luka of old? And I understand. Has this been his best statistical season? Yes. 34, 9-9, probably should have won the NBA MVP. But at the end of the day, what you saw in 2020, when he elevated his game in the postseason, dropping 40 points in a game, right? Dropping great plays against Phoenix in a Game 7 in 2022. He looked better. He got to the rim more, and he stopped with this stupid little too many pump fakes, too many fallaways. He got to the lane back in 2020 and 2021. He was able to get downhill and get a bucket at the cup, which we have not seen in this series. We hadn't seen in the series where him just being able to put his head down and go past a guy. I understand. The main thing about Luka Doncic, the absolute main thing about Luka, is how he can speed you up and slow you down. He plays at his own pace, okay? But I think too much he played at his own pace in this series, where his pace slowed everything down, that even when he was open from 3, he had to do a little move, maybe a jab, a pump, to draw the defender on him. He could not take an open shot in this series. He is looking too much for fouls. And it's okay if you want to look for fouls. Okay? But once you make it your entire game, you devaluize open shots, getting your teammates involved, and actually scoring. Luka was looking for 2 shots with a foul more than 2 points. Right? He was looking too much for the fouls in this series, is what I saw. And it hurt him. It hurt him bad. Right? Game 1 of the NBA Finals, he got 1 assist. It was not much of a fluid offense from Dallas. And Boston passes the ball. Boston passes the ball. Not many people like the Celtics, right? I understand that. But they can pass. Those boys can pass. They are unselfish. Jaylen Brown won Finals MVP, averaging 21 points a game. Not many guys in this series were putting up 30 a game for Boston, right? Jason Tatum averaged 22 in the series. On awful shooting, by the way, as well. So everybody was getting involved, and Boston had 5 stars that they could rely on. And I think it just comes down to how many guys can you rely on for Boston to score you 20 in a game? I think Tatum can score me 20. Jaylen Brown can score me 20. Porzingis, Holiday, Derek White. Maybe Peyton Pritchard if he goes off. That's 6 guys. But let's just say 5. How many guys can I think can score me 20 for the Mavs? Luka, Kyrie. That's it. And Kyrie scored 20 twice in this series in 5 games. He shot over 50% from the field once in this series, in a game where he only scored 21 points. So if you have 5 stars or 5 competent players in your lineup, if 5 of them, you have 5 of them, all right? One of them's not playing well. you have 4 other guys to pick them up. Okay? 2 of them aren't playing well. You got 3 other guys to pick them up. Let's flip it over to Dallas. You got 2 players that can score. 2 players that can score for you. When one isn't going, there's only one to pick them up. So you lose, when one guy's here, you lose 20% of production. You lose one here, almost flip you guys off, you lose 50% of production. It's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. They took too many stupid shots in this series, and it hurt them bad. So the Celtics have an 18th banner. The 2 guys that were there the longest, that have now been here for what? Jaylen Brown's in year 8, believe it or not. Jason Tatum's in year 7, believe it or not. Still only a teenager, believe it or not. Where did Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown rank amongst the best players in the NBA? Because I think it's always fun when a team wins a championship. Because now we have to change the way we think about a lot of things. Drew Holiday's a 2-time champ now. He's a 6-time all-defensive player. He's a 2-time all-star. He might be an NBA Hall of Famer. Which is something that if you would have asked somebody, oh, would this guy be a Hall of Famer? If you just asked him 12 months ago, it'd be a definite no. But he won another championship. He was on another all-defensive team. Hall of Famer? Potentially. And now Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are champions. So it changed the outlooks of it changes the outlooks of things. I'll start with the Finals MVP, Jaylen Brown. Where does he rank amongst the best players in the NBA? And it's tough because I didn't see an amazing performance in the Finals for Jaylen Brown. I don't think anybody did. But clutch when it matters most. Game 3 of the Finals, Celtics are up 2-0 in Dallas. Jaylen Brown hits the shot that basically wins the Celtics Game 3. And, if they wouldn't have won that, the series yesterday would have been 2-2 instead of 3-1. Okay? So, Jaylen Brown drops 20 points per game, 5 rebounds, 5 assists in 5 games. And he's a Finals MVP, which is the toughest trophy to win in all of the NBA. Finals MVP. It's more important than an MVP trophy. It weighs more, in my opinion. So where does Jaylen Brown rank? He didn't wow me in this series. He did what he did. He dropped 20 a game. 5 rebounds, 5 assists. It didn't jump off the score sheet. But he's in the Finals. And a lot of guys we're talking about, upper echelon players, never been there. I would be pretty comfortable to say Jaylen Brown's a top 15 player in the league at this moment in time. Top 15 player in the league. Which I don't think is crazy to anybody. But, like some guys around that area, is he better than De'Aaron Fox? Yes. Is he better than John Morant? Yes. Is he better than Tyrese Maxey? Yes. Like a lot of those guards we're going to compare him to. Tyrese Halliburton? Yes. Like he's better than all those guys. And he's an NBA Finals champ. And he's a Finals MVP. So I'd say Jaylen Brown's a top 15 player in the league. And Jason Tatum is tough. Jason Tatum is tough to figure out on his ranking. He's a champ now. Didn't look too great in the series. We understand that much. But he's still a champ. And what the big thing is, in game number 5 last night, 31 points, 11 assists, 9 rebounds. That's a big-time performance from JT. Listen, I think he's a top 5 player in the league, but it's close. You have Nikola Jokic, we know that much. You have Giannis, I still think is probably better than Jason Tatum. Luka, that's 3. I still think I'd put Luka over Tatum. Embiid is tough. Like, is Embiid better than Tatum? I would say Kevin Durant is better than Tatum. And that's kind of where I draw the line. You have Embiid, is he better? It's close. It's close if Embiid's better than Tatum. But Jason Tatum just won a championship. That's tough to beat. That's such an accomplishment. It's so tough to beat. I think Jason Tatum's a top 5 player in the league. Speaking of top 5s, let's get into our top 5 of the best franchises in NBA history because we got to change the way we think about everything. The Celtics have the 18th banner. It's not. It was a race to 18 between them and the Lakers. The Celtics won it. We all know they'd win that race. They stand atop the pedestal alone now. There's nobody else besides them. They don't have to share it with the Lakers anymore. Here's the top 5 best franchises in NBA history, in my opinion. Let's go. Number 5 is the Chicago Bulls. 6 championships. The problem I knock with Chicago, they were good for 10 years. And more specifically, they were good for 6 years. Besides from that, in the Chicago Bulls history, the 80s, they were not great. They were a playoff team. 70s, they sucked. 60s, they sucked. 2000s, they sucked. 2010s, they sucked. 2020s, they've sucked. They won 6 championships, but they haven't been a prominent team for too long. Of course, the Jordan Pippen, Rodman, the brand of Chicago and the Bulls looms so large. I understand that. But I can't put you any higher when in the 80s they sucked, 70s they sucked, 2000s they sucked, 2010s, and 2020s. I can't do it. What I can do is give the San Antonio Spurs number 4. George Gervin in the 70s. 80s were rough. David Robinson in the early 90s, and then the mid-2000s, that was them. And then getting a championship in 2014 is also huge. The fact that they were in the postseason for 21 consecutive years, a show of dominance from a long run. Do they have as many as Chicago? No. But one less championship, I don't think, means more than 20 more plus years of success. Number 3 is the Warriors. They won 7 rings. They were a team, even before the Golden State dynasty, with Clay and Draymond and Curry, they still had 3 rings. They were great in the 60s with Wilt and those boys. Great with them. Okay? And now they come in the 2000s. They're great. Great. Good in the 80s and 90s with Chris Mullin. 7 championships. 2 more than San Antonio, 1 more than Chicago. And they did it in different eras. They didn't stack their rings all up in one era. I'll give it to Golden State at number 3. Number 2. The new champs, the Boston Celtics. 18 rings, I understand it. I don't think they're the number 1 franchise in NBA history. The Lakers, who is my number 1, have played in 5 more NBA finals. And I think getting to 5 more NBA finals outweighs winning 1 more when they've had so many. Right? When you have a team that has 0 rings and a team that has 1, the gap is this, And if you played in more finals, maybe you can get up. But when it's 17 and 18, it doesn't matter the gap as much. It's one of a different gap. And I can't really remember time, pick out a 10-year run where the Lakers were bad. You can't do it. You can with Boston, mid-90s, mid-2000s. Bad team. Lakers, great in the 50s and 60s, good enough in the 70s. Showtime Lakers in the 80s. And then from 1992 to 1996, yeah, they were bad. And then Shaq and Kobe came along, and they were great up until 2012. And then 2012 to 2018, they were bad. And then they went back to winning a championship again. The Celtics have won 2 championships since 1986. If we count the Lakers, they won 2 with Magic after then. 5 with Kobe, so we're sitting at 6. And 1 with LeBron. They've won 7 rings since 1986. Celtics have won 1. since 86. Or excuse me, 2. So I still think Boston, congrats, you're champs. I'm not taking anything away from the Celtics. But the Lakers are still the best franchise in NBA history. The elongated success, same thing I said with Chicago, for me outweighs having one more championship. All right. We talked enough about the Celtics. How about the Dallas Mavs? What does Dallas need to do in 2025 to put themselves in a position where they can win an NBA Finals again and put themselves in a spot where they can compete again? And it's not as simple as you'd say. You keep Luka and Kyrie, the role players you have are enough. But I think the system has to change in the postseason for Dallas. The system was awful in the playoffs. It's simple. I'd keep the same core. Get some three-point shooters to help Luka out. Because you can't rely on P.J. Washington and Derek Jones to hit threes. And who knows if they're back next year. Folks, it is June the 18th, which means we are getting closer to college football season, and it means we're getting closer to college football 25. Can't wait for that one. With that being said, here are my top 5 best moments in college football history. Let's get into it. At number 5 is the 2007 Fiesta Bowl. Oklahoma, Boise State. Back when in the BCS era, there was one team, one group of 5 team, one small team would get an opportunity to play, and they would never win. I mean, we saw Utah did it in like 2004, but the lateral on a 4th down, the Statue of Liberty play, it's incredible. 2007 Fiesta Bowl. Number 4, Tua Tagovailoa, 2nd and 26 against Georgia to win the national title. Anytime you can have a walk-off in the national title game, you'll take it. And it's one of the best moments ever. Number 3, the Mountaineers of Appalachian State. The biggest underdog win ever. They go to the Big House in week number 1 and beat the Michigan Wolverines. They were 34.5-point underdogs in that game. They beat Michigan 34-32 on the blocked kick. Appalachian State wins the football game. Classic. Number 2, this is since 2000, by the way. Number 2 is the kick 6. Number 1 ranked Alabama. Number 4 ranked Auburn. Iron Bowl. And in the wildest play possible, he takes it. Chris Davis takes it 108 yards to the house for the Auburn Tigers. I mean, you can't make it up. At number 1, Vince Young versus Texas in the Rose Bowl in 2005. Texas USC. All the stars in that one. And Vince Young on a 4th and 6 makes the play. Those are my top 5 college football moments ever. And our final segment. Our final segment of the day. NFL players, if there was a stock market. If you are into the business side of things, the S&P 500 hit an all-time high yesterday. Might hit another all-time high again today. We'll have to see. But that got me going and thinking, what if we could trade NFL players on the stock market? And I have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 of the most intriguing players in the league. Would you buy, would you sell, or would you hold? And this is different. You have to think this in mind. Say the player's Patrick Mahomes. Of course, everybody would want to buy Mahomes, right? Top player in the league. You have to realize his value. If you buy Mahomes, the only way you're kind of making money back is if he has like an MVP season next year and wins the Super Bowl, right? Compared to a guy like Daniel Jones. I don't like Jones, but if he, if you say, I don't like Daniel Jones, if you buy Daniel Jones and he has a solid enough season, the stock will go up. So let's get into it. You'll see. Jordan Love, buy, sell, hold. I'm higher on Jordan Love than basically anybody. I'm buying Jordan Love. I am buying Jordan Love. I think he's got a chance to win MVP next year. The Packers were the youngest team in the league this past year, and my goodness did he ball out. towards the back half of the season, which of course you got to weigh more than the front half, Jordan Love I'd buy. Derek Carr and Michael Thomas selling. I want no part of the Saints. They are so mid every year. You cannot stay unbelievably mid and not have a year where you fall off. Geno Smith, I'm going to buy Geno Smith because I don't think anybody's thinking about Geno Smith right now as a guy that we're looking at as a top player. And I think still DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Kenneth Walker, they still got a squad there. They still got a squad, and I think Geno can have a good year. Joe Burrow, I'm going to sell. I'm going to sell on Joe Burrow. The perception is so high on Joe Burrow right now that I can't talk myself into buying Joe Burrow. Dak Prescott, it's a high stock. I'm going to buy Dak Prescott stock because there's so many people doubting him, as there always is. I think he has a really good year. Jahmyr Gibbs stock, I'm going to sell. I'm going to sell his stock. Of course, it's on the uptick, but it's the whole Lions stock as a whole is so large right now. Still have to share the backfield with David Montgomery, and I think that's going to hurt him. Trevor Lawrence, big contract. I'm buying Trevor Lawrence stock. The Jags had a horrific collapse of the year last year, but they were the number one seed. They were the number one seed in week number 12 last year. I think they come out with a vengeance. Drake May, I'm holding on Drake May. He's a rookie. Patriots, I don't like the system. Justin Herbert, selling Justin Herbert. The Harbaugh way is running the ball. That's what they're going to do. I don't like any stocks of Herbert. Finally, Aaron Rodgers, I am buying A-Rod. In this Jets' entire offense is going to be electric. So it's just me today. That's 32 minutes of talking about balls down in the books. We'll see you guys next week. Hopefully my partner could join us as we will really start to dive into the NFL. It's going to be pretty fun. This summer, we'll have so much to talk about the NFL, making our own stuff and whatnot. That'll do it for this episode of Talking About Balls. We'll see you.